Hello, I'm Lucy and welcome to the Sportfish Spring Spectacular. We're here today at the beautiful Thornton Longcrag Trout Fishery in Northumberland, where we're going to look at autumn tactics for small to medium stillwaters. So before we start fishing, let's look at the tackle we're going to use. So starting with the rod. Here I have a 9'6" 7-weight rod, which is about right for this type of venue. However, anything between a 9'6" and a 10 is also suitable. On my rod, I have a basic disc drag reel, which is weighted 7 to 8, which matches my 7-weight floating line. Recently, the fish have been very much towards the surface or just under the surface, so a floating line is about right. However, I would always advocate carrying an intermediate or a sinking line in your armoury just in case the fish are a little bit deeper. Weather conditions are very changeable this time of year and you never know. Leader wise, I have 6.5 pounds. Always check the fishery rules before starting fishing and check that the diameter you're using is about right. Fish this time of year can be quite aggressive, so don't use any leader that's too light because you will end up breaking off. I have a bunch of flies here, which I'll talk about in a bit more detail shortly. But in essence, we've got some patterns that sit on the water and patterns that sit subsurface. We'll talk about those when we start fishing a lot more. But again, we're keeping it nice and simple, nice and straightforward. I'm not carrying boxes and boxes and boxes of flies with me today. I have a net with me, which is a must. So most fisheries do supply nets, so you don't need to bring a net. This is often because of cross-contamination, disease between the fisheries. This net is ideal because it has a long pole to it, which makes catching the fish, letting the fish go much easier, which hopefully you'll see shortly. One thing I never go fishing without is a hat and glasses, and these are for safety. Flying hooks throughout the day, especially in windy conditions, the last thing you want is a hook in your head or worse still, in your eye. We have one pair of eyes and we want to look after them. Polarised glasses in particular are very useful. They cut through the glare, especially when it's sunny, and enable you to see the fish much easier, and hopefully we'll be able to target some today. So now that we're tackled up, we've come round to our first spot we're going to start fishing, and I'm just going to talk a bit about fly choice. So I have on here around about a 12-foot leader. And I've actually put 2 flies on. On the point, I've got a suspender buzzer, which imitates an emergent insect. And on the dropper, I've got a large hare's ear, which imitates a variety of insects. The reason we've come here is there's quite a lot of weed in this corner, close in around the margins. And this time of year, you tend to find the weed starting to die back. So that brings the fish in a lot closer, and they tend to feed much closer into the bank. So I'm going to make a start very close in. I'm not going to cast particularly far out, I'm not going to cast over the heads, and let's see if we can get a fish. I'm just starting super short in terms of my cast. I'm just going just beyond the weed bed, or where the weed bed is dying off, I should say. And I'm fishing relatively static. I'm taking up the loose line, the spare line, keeping it relatively taut, but I'm not casting far out. I've seen the odd fish cruising around this area, and I'm just starting super short and just fishing static to begin with, just to see if we'll have any interest. Basically, in essence, if I start casting further out, I'm going to spook anything that's close into the margin and feeding. Now you do tend to find as the day progresses with angler pressure, the fish do tend to push out a bit further. And I'm basically fanning. I'm fanning my approach to my cast. So I'm, in essence, you know, covering as much water as I can relatively close in with the 2 flies I've got on right now. So I'm going to cast just a bit further out, and I'm going to move those flies a little bit more. So often if you do a slightly faster retrieve, sometimes it just attracts them a bit more, almost to a speed up and stop. Just to try and attract. There's one. So he swam to the right, so hopefully you'll see that. That fish just followed. Okay, interesting. Right, he swum off to the right. So he didn't take, but I'm going to do the exact same thing. So again, steady figure of 8. All the way to a stop. Now he's swimming away from me. So the great thing about having polarized glasses is you can see the fish, especially in conditions like this. He's still there, but he is definitely not interested. So he came, he had a look, and he swam off. I have just seen a couple of daddy longlegs on the top, so there's a fish there. I'm thinking now about changing to a daddy. Common sense, look around, anything you see, try and mimic it. So I think we'll stick one on and see if we can get a bit of action on a daddy. In terms of fly choice, a couple of things. Always ask when you arrive at a fishery, ask the guy or the lady behind the desk what they're catching on, what's working. It can be a bit daunting, especially when you're new to fly fishing or when you're new to a venue, where to start, what fly to choose. So always do ask. The other thing is, anglers are usually 9 times out of 10 super friendly. I just asked the chap next door what he was catching on earlier because he's had 3 this morning. So if you're just not sure, just ask. So I'm almost skating this daddy across the top, which in essence is what I've seen, hence the change of fly. Yes, got it. Okay, so he took on a daddy. Just want to keep him out of that weed if I can. Bring him in, grab my net, keep his head up. There we go. There we are. Brilliant. That's what we want. So I had that fish on the daddy, which we've just changed to, and a couple of different things I did there. So I didn't see the fish at all. He came up blind completely. And what I did differently was I popped a bit of floatant on, so that kept the fly a lot more buoyant. I'd already seen daddy longlegs skating across the water, so I thought, oh, we'll give it a try, match the hatch and all that. And rather than a figure of 8 retrieved, I actually started stripping the fly back. So I stripped it back, a couple of strips, and I stopped dead, and that's when he took. And he took when I was least expecting it, which is often the case. Okay, we're well into the afternoon now. We've got some lovely cloud cover, the bright sun's gone, and you can see that the fish are really starting to come up. So we're going to give it another go and see what we can do on the top. There was an angler earlier who caught on this and he gave me a copy, so I'm hoping that a change in fly will give us some luck. In, there we go. Fish on. Brilliant. Oh, he's feisty. So again, he took quite far out, so it just goes to show you that possibly because of pressure, just been pushed out a wee bit today. It's a nice fish. Right on the top. Let him play. And a nice bit of weed there as well. Nice rainbow, lovely. Nice. Oh, he's off. Lost him, Damon. Angler error. So every time you get a fish, just always double check your fly. Just check that the hook isn't bent, it's still tied on, there's no little wind knots or anything wrong with it. Last thing you want to do is lose a fish just by not checking the fly. I'm just retying the exact same fly on here. And we're going to do it all over again. Oh no! I lost 2 fish back to back! How ridiculous is that? So my top 3 tips for autumn stillwater fly fishing are: read the water, look around, if you see fish moving, go fish to them. Secondly, keep moving around the water, so don't stay in the same spot, keep covering as much water as possible. And thirdly, if a fly's not working, change it. Sometimes it's those subtle changes that make all the difference. And a bonus tip is don't be afraid to ask. So just ask at the fishing lodge or ask your fellow anglers what they're using, if they're catching, and I'm sure they'll be happy to help. So we've been on the naturals all afternoon. I have lost a couple of fish. We're now losing the light really quickly. It's gone very quiet. So we've got half an hour left. So I'm going to pop a lure on and see if we can entice one more fish. Okay, so I've now changed to a lure pattern, which is more representative of a fry or a small fish. There we go, we're in. So there we go, second cast on that lure and we're into a fish. Nice fish. Nice. So there we go, Change to a lure and that worked second cast. What a lovely fish to end the day on. So I really hope you've enjoyed the video and hopefully this has inspired you to get out and enjoy some autumn Stillwater fly fishing.